Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you today. Oh, yeah. Who's worse, Lane Kiffin or Schlossnagle? And we're going to get into that. And also, we're going to talk about Jimbo's possible role in all of this. There's a lot to cover. And look, I just go ahead and tell my VOLS fans out there, I know talking about Lane Kiffin is a big-time trigger for you. Not everybody, probably about 5–10% of you, you don't ever want to hear the name Lane Kiffin. So I wanted to go ahead and let you know up front. You know how I do this. Humongous, let them know.
Just walk away.
That's right. Just walk away. Because, well, Dalton, tell them this too.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Roadhouse.
Okay. All right, so without further ado, let's get into Schlossnagle. Then we're going to talk about Lane and Jimbo. Now, to say that Schlossnagle is despised at Texas A&M is really kind of tame to say. I mean, he is the most hated dude right now. They're so mad at him. And it's one thing to leave. And the way he left, the timing of it, it was just horrible. I mean, it couldn't have been worse. And he really should be mad at the athletic director of Texas to fire their coach the day before the national championship game. He couldn't have picked a worse time. It put Schlossnagle in an impossible situation. And then he handled it the worst of anybody I've ever seen. Yeah, basically giving the reporter a bunch of crap for even asking him the question about Texas. And we've covered the crap out of that. But to go to your arch enemy is unforgivable. I mean, it's the worst thing you could possibly do to Texas A&M is to almost win the national title and then take yourself and a bunch of assistants over to Texas. I mean, you can't write a story worse than this. And we're going to get into how people feel about it, but here is a young lady who is not happy.
So Jim Schlossnagle is headed to the University of Texas after coaching A&M in baseball for the last 3 years. Does it suck that he's going to our hated rival? Absolutely. But you know what? People job hop, money talks, fine. My issue is this man straight up lied. And before you sit here and say, oh, coaches lie all the time. Okay, people cheat all the time. Are you not allowed to be mad when someone comes home and it's like, sorry, I cheated? Well, babe, everyone does it. No. This man, after losing the College World Series in Game 3 to a better Tennessee team, said it with his chest, berated a reporter, and it's like, you're being disrespectful for asking about this. Aggieland is my home. Bullshit, dude. Like, you're telling me that he didn't know? Like, that's my issue. Like, for what? What part of just standing up there and saying, like, I love Aggieland, don't be disrespectful about asking me, we just lost the College World Series. You knew the whole time, my guy. And as much as I want, obviously, the players who have won, the school to have won, the loyal fans, Aggies who love A&M with all their heart to have won that World Series, this man did not deserve it because he knew he was leaving. And if he just sat up there and somehow skirted the question, I might have more respect for him. This man is a coward. Coward. Say it with your chest. Good luck. See ya. Again, go to Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan. I don't care. Just don't lie. Say it with your chest. Be a man, dude, which you're not. Bye.
Okay, she didn't look too happy. And I can also tell you when a woman talks to you and she's doing a lot of this, she's not happy. That's an angry hand motion. She's not seeing you in a positive light. Now we're going to get into some possible shady recruiting that he was doing while he was at Texas A&M, possibly. It says former Texas A&M player accuses Jim Schlossnagle of shady recruiting. It says former Aggies outfielder J.B. Moss claims Schlossnagle was recruiting for the Longhorns while the championship series was going on. More will come out, but recruiting kids to Texas from burner phones while playing in the national championship is all-time greasy Wednesday. Moss wrote on X Wednesday. And you see that here. That's already gotten 1.2 million views. So a lot of people have seen this. But it doesn't stop there. Another former player or current player at A&M, he had some things to say. And he said the player put him on blast after he left Texas A&M. And the player is Travis Chestnut. Said he didn't mince words. He said, not once in my career was he a respectable man to me. I stuck with him because I wanted to be an Aggie and in the SEC. And I told you folks, he didn't look like a likable dude. I actually said that yesterday. He puts out an aura about him that's not positive. Everything's a transaction. Okay. So I could see him I'm just going to take this job over here and, deal with it. And having players come out and say that's how he was with them, Totally see it. I could. Like I said, comparing him to Tony Vitello is night and day. Like Tony's a guy you'd run through a wall for. I mean, all his players love him. He loves them, etc. There's none of that with this guy. He's probably a good dude, but he does not put out a good positive feel or vibe towards the players. And now you're hearing from folks who are like, yeah, he was kind of a horse's rear end is what it sounds like to me. All right, now we're going to compare him to public enemy number one in the state of Tennessee, and that is one Lane Kiffin. And we're also going to tie it to the Texas A&M thing. And I actually had a comment comparing Lane Kiffin to Schlossnagle, and I was actually preparing to do a story on that, but A to Z beat me to it. And normally it's Zach Reagan, but this is Jack Gentry. It says Lane Kiffin joins latest college controversy as Texas A&M baseball coach bolts for Texas. And again, he shouldn't have got anywhere near this after what he did to Tennessee, but let's see what he did, because look, that's what the guy does. He loves to troll.
What is the capital of Assyria?
I don't know that.
And he obviously saw the Casey Smith Twitter video that went out, and here's where he responded. He said, very fair way to feel. Fair points on how you feel lied to and cheated on. I'm sorry for your loss. Obviously talking to Texas A&M and this young lady. And Casey said, thank you, Lane. And one guy said, Lay said, weird, that is exactly what my therapist said to me after you left for USC. This guy said, yo, Lane, don't make me grab my mustard. Said, Lane, really ready to risk it all. Another fella said, Lane, we know what you're doing. And there were dozens of comments underneath that where people were like, oh, really? Lane's going to sit here and troll Texas A&M after what he's known for it. He's known for doing exactly this, only I don't know. Schlossnagle might be worse. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And here the guy says, Kiffin knows about being the most hated man on a college campus. It was after the 2009 season when Kiffin left Tennessee after just one season at the helm at Tennessee before taking the job at USC. Couches were burned, rocks were painted, etc. And I'm going to show you pictures of that as well. The terrible part is we wound up with that Dooley dude from Louisiana Tech because we had to hurry up and bring a coach in. Guy had a losing record of like 4-7 the year before, and we got stuck with that loser for about 3 or 4 years. He really put us in a horrible situation. And Lane, the one positive thing that came out is it screwed up his career for a decade. And he wound up getting fired out at USC because he took a job where he didn't understand the circumstances. They had so many recruiting violations out there that he wound up with a really thin team, and he didn't have any depth because of recruiting restrictions. And stupidly, he didn't look into that. He just, I'm going to be the USC head coach. And he got fired after a few years and got left on the tarmac. He couldn't even travel back with the team. They disrespected him big time. And then he was out in the wilderness for about 10 years because nobody would touch him because they're like, who the crap wants to hire a guy that would backstab their team the way that he did Tennessee? And here's photos from that night. This is on VOLS Wire. And here he is waiting for the live footage to stop so he can go to his plane. He didn't want to go out there and face the wrath. Here's where all the students were ready to come in the athletic place. They were trying to get to him. They wanted to talk to him, I believe. Here they are burning stuff. It says, go home, traitor, it's time. Here's another one that says, we hate you, Lane Kiffin. Here he is looking out. He knows, I don't need to go out there. Here's the police blocking the students. Said, you can't go in there. They were not happy. And here they are burning mattresses. That's what this thing was most known for, was the mattress burning. And it was a big deal. I remember it very well. I was mad. And I totally understood how the students felt because he had really, he had stuck it in our back, twisted it, and then poured Morton salt on it. It was really bad. But is it worse than Schlossnagle? At least he didn't go to Alabama or Florida. That would have been the worst case scenario for me at the time. Or LSU or Georgia, something like that. At least he went out of conference. That was the one positive out of any of it. And then, of course, he tried to take recruits with him, because that's what they always do. And it sounds like that's what Schlossnagle was trying to do. It's really hard for me as a Vol fan to say who's worse, but it kind of feels, football's more important than baseball. So that kind of offsets it. They're equally brutal. And here's the thing. Lane's hated at Tennessee. Schlossnagle's hated at Texas A&M. But understand this. when Lane came up here with his Ole Miss team and he got the mustard bottles thrown at him and the golf ball and all that, I worry about Schlossnagle going to Texas A&M to play baseball. They're going to be waiting on him. They're going to look. They'll have to have security because that is a really brutal rivalry, and it's going to be soon because it'll be next season. He's going to have to travel to Texas A&M to play because they're in the SEC. That's the way it is, unless he gets super lucky and somehow the series winds up at Texas. I tell you, it's going to be a mess. Now let's talk a little bit about Jimbo Fisher. Did he play a role in this in any way? Back in April, Texas A&M's new athletic director had to make cuts. Now, understand, they owe Jimbo $76 million. It's the biggest buyout in the history of college football. There's never been anybody close. I think 20 million was the biggest prior to that, maybe 30. 76 is just gigantic. It's almost the entire budget of most schools when it comes to their athletic department. It's a monstrosity. So on top of that, now athletic department's got to come up with $22 million a year for players as part of not NIL, but revenue sharing, which they've cut this deal with the NCAA. So Texas A&M came out and said in April, hey, we're going to start cutting people, and we're going to start cutting expenses and staff. And right here, News 3 at a College Station said athletic director Trev Alberts has made changes with the athletic department. The following people, there's 18 people that were let go. An executive deputy, deputy athletics director, another deputy, director of football player development, assistant athletic director, another associate athletic director, senior athletic director, on and on and on. Alberts said, we are on the cusp of unprecedented change in athletics as a department. We have to adapt and become more efficient and effective so that we are best positioned for the changes to come. However, what will not change is student athlete, blah, 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 blah. So this morning we met with individuals. Obviously, they let them go. Said these changes are difficult. Let me state emphatically, these people have done nothing wrong. These are good, hardworking members, and I can assure you this was not personal. It was a business decision and very difficult one at that. And it said, according to Alberts, this move has no connection to the $76 million buyout that Texas A&M owes Coach Jimbo Fisher.
You serious?
When do you know when somebody's trying to subvert or try to get you to look away? Is when they directly say it has nothing to do with it. $76 million has nothing to do with you cutting your expenses and your budget. Do you think we're idiots? Of course it had something to do with it. So the Jimbo Fisher contract extension has had to play a role in this because that Schlossnagle saw all those cuts and went, daggone, man, they're going to start cutting and cutting and cutting. And baseball, is not as important as football. So he's sitting there going, crap, this is going to affect the team. And then Texas is over here going, hey, we got plenty of money. We don't have to pay somebody $76 million. We're happy with our head coach. So that might have played a role. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if it did. Look, when you got to start cutting expenses, things happen. So anyway, I don't know how much of a role it played, but I'll bet you anything it played somewhat of a role. It almost had to. That is just too much money to have to come up with.
Comes in pretty handy down here, bub.
Oh,
So anyway, I wanted to cover all this. And I tell you, like I said, it's really hard for me to determine who's worse, Lane or Schlossnagle. They're both equally brutal. But the Jimbo Fisher effect, it played a role that's my opinion. I think it played a role. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. It won't cost you a dime, and I'd appreciate it. And right over here is most recent video, YouTube. Thinks you'll enjoy. And for the Texas A&M Aggies, I feel your pain, man. I just do. I can totally understand how you feel. We have been through the exact same thing, and it stinks. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.